This is being recorded to the cloud, as was part one. This is part two then of R678 in week 7 in the spring of 2024. And this week is on precision learning, being precise in the feedback, being precise in the analysis. There are a lot of articles for this week, however, and it's going to be difficult for you to select the ones you want to read. There are 14 articles counting the introductory article from Dr. Yang. You'll notice in this week's articles, we've got in Article 1, it's from Taiwan. Article 2, a team from Michigan and the Netherlands working together in business and economics area. Article number 3, Taiwan and Japan in accounting, education, and media studies and computing. Article number 6, Japan and Taiwan again. Again, the same cohort working together. There are some teams here that have multiple articles in the 14 articles to select from. Article 8, let's go back to, Article 6 and Article 5 are both on ebooks. So just one is a different part of their same study, basically. And they have different first authors. Article 8 from Griffith University, where I did a webinar 2 years ago in Australia. They're only from Griffith. Article 9, Hong Kong, Education University of Hong Kong in the English department. So our English people, 20 years of personalized language learning. That one's probably the easiest to understand of all the articles, because it's a systematic review of the research. So it's an overview article. It's not a it's not really, how do you say, very nitty-gritty kind of stuff. Article number 10, people from Turkey and Japan working together, looking at student online assignment submission behavior patterns and when they post, the learning analytics around timing of the postings, early in the week, early in the semester, late in the semester, and all that. Article number 11, we got Nanyang Technological, NTU, from Singapore, and National Institute of Education next door. They both are part of the same organization in Singapore. I've been to both. Looking at the quality of one's ideas in online classroom talk, like in Canvas. Article number 13, we've got people from Taiwan, Institute of Education and National Chaodong University. I think I've been there as well, in Shinshu, and graduate school in Kyoto, Japan, working together. Learning Analytics 2.0, looking at what smart education might be like in the future, integrating both theory and technology together in this article. An integrated framework, anyhow. Article, last one, I was starting to get into and read before class, and I just didn't get into it enough to really describe it. Article 14 is on career decisions, using an institutional research perspective to predict undergraduate students' career decisions in the practice of precise education. That's from Taipei people again, National Chaodong University and National Taipei University of Education. So this whole special issue is dominated by people in Taiwan, with some folks from Japan, Hong Kong, Netherlands, and other. It's not just, there's a variety. These are only some of the articles. I read about 8. That's only some of the, there's 6 more I didn't even print out. So it's a lot to expect Jennifer to summarize in the discussion postings. It's a lot for me to expect anybody in here to wrap their heads around intellectually around all 14. Don't do that. Pick the 3 you want to read, pick 4, maybe 5. Don't go beyond that unless you really, really want to know this field like Jill does. This is Jill's area stuff, So I know Jill's going to want to read them all. And plus she's from Taiwan, so she probably knows the people in these articles. Yeah, she's shaking her head. So I was going to have Jennifer start us off tonight a bit and talk about the articles, and then Bo, and then me. But I've changed my mind, Jennifer. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call up the articles. I'm going to let you add comments to the ones that you focused on, and Bo, you can add comments on the ones that you focused on. but I think I'll let Jill go first. I wasn't thinking, Jill's from Taiwan. Jill, have you had a chance to go into these articles and tell us what is the state of precision education in Taiwan, and why is it become more important in Taiwan than in other countries around the world?
Okay. I'm not sure if my information is correct or not, but in Taiwan, as I know, the precision education is very important, especially in the field of IST. For example, I'm doing my dashboard, which is motivated as part of precision education because people, especially teachers, would like to know the details of students' learning outcomes or learning process. So we needed not a lot of I don't think it's a monitor, but it's this kind of visualization or some kind of numbers to show how students perform and to show properly the distance away from the so-called success in Taiwan.
So do you know Dr. Stephen
Probably.
Yang from National Central University in Taiwan, who edited the special issue? Do you know him?
I heard about him, but I'm very familiar with one of the authors called Guo Huang because he is one of my thesis committee
Okay, well,
member.
then you should
It's
know
a
him. It's
chair.
on your thesis. So why don't you introduce
It's
him
a
to
chair
me?
of my committee member. Yeah.
Why don't you introduce him to me and point out which article it was, and maybe we'll get a
And
comment from him.
Yeah, I would like to highlight probably the difference between the US education and the Taiwan education. Probably the biggest difference is that here in the US, people more put um the foci, or say the spotlight, the highlight in the students' learning process. But in Taiwan, probably including the parents, not only the teachers, including the parents, will put their focus on the learning outcomes.
Mhm. So here it's
Yeah,
process, here it's activities,
yeah,
and there it's what did you learn? What are the outcomes? That's
yeah.
traditional
So
Jill,
I
education.
think,
Jill, do
so I think,
the parents
yeah.
are they like acutely aware of what the learning outcomes are and what they mean
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Yes, because I really want to post one of the article, which is very popular recently in last week in Taiwan. It's an article from a cram school. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the so-called cram school. It's a
Sure.
school after school.
Yeah.
So it's a cram school article talking about the schedule, the daily schedule of the two kids. One is the fourth grader and the other one is the first grader in the elementary schools. And this brother and sister start their days every day from 5 p.m.
5 a.m.
to 5 a.m. Yeah, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. non-stop.
Wow.
So the parents really care about the learning outcome. So they need a lot of numbers
I
to
understand.
trace, yeah, the kids' performance. I think probably, so I'm just saying, I'm not sure if my presentation is correct or not, but I think the precision education is related to culture.
Yeah. Well, Sung-hee experiences cram school in Korea, right? Sung-hee, they still have it. It's alive and well in Korea too.
Jill, how do you spell Krem school? Is it Krem?
No, CREM, CREM,
CR.
CRAM, CREM
AM.
school.
AM?
Yeah, AM.
Cram. Just
Like
like cram.
cramming for an exam type of thing.
Sung-hee?
Oh,
So you
gotcha.
have never heard about the term cram school?
I've heard of the like like the extreme educational support that students over there go through before and after school, and like the long duration of it
yeah.
at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
I didn't know, I'd never heard of the name of it before. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think cram school are also popular in Japan and in South Korea and probably in mainland China as well, right? Alicia, Elena probably have heard about similar institutions like cram schools. Yeah.
Very much an East Asian
I
thing.
should say something
So
about
they have
cram
to
school.
report.
We have the new policy. I need to correct it. We have no cram school nowadays, especially for young kids, because it's overwhelming. It's too much pressure for kids, especially if we want kids grow healthily, because it's a lot of intensive classes after school. And now we try to advocate, especially our Ministry of Education, try to advocate that, give them more relaxed and more maybe good environment for us, for our kids to learn. And so we banned the cram school. Yes, Jen is right. Yeah, it's quite
There
right.
you go. Now, what's going to happen though is your international test scores are going to go down, and people are going to get mad at teachers in your country then for years. So,
Yeah.
But
Who posted
I will
that?
make one more sentence about Alicia's comments. Actually, there are still some underground cram schools, you know.
oh no.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
I will say that I invested a fair bit of money in Chinese ed tech companies, and that didn't do so well in the last 2 years because they banned
Yeah,
cram
they
schools,
cannot make a huge amount of money. you know.
VIP kids, and all those just went.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
you guys have pointed out one of the
Cram.
benefits of the cram school. They are most of the private institutes.
yeah.
Yeah, and have very profitable jobs, so including the language teachers.
It's not just cram
You
school.
always
it's
have jobs in Taiwan.
Well, it's not just cram schools. It was all ed tech companies. All technology companies in China were put on some kind of stricter guidelines, I think, to try and equalize access to education, not just have the rich kids get access to the extra education at night from VIP kids and other. And so the notion was to try and help all children out. But Sung-hee, you're muted. Did you have anything to add to this conversation?
Yes, in Korea we haven't not a cram school, but we study in advance. Middle school students study high school content until midnight. Yes, and the other one is supplementary private school. Yes. It's not kind of a cram, but study in advance or supplement. Yes.
Thank you for all these comments. Helps contextualize the readings for this week and why East Asian researchers, be they in parts of China and Hong Kong or in Korea or in Taiwan or Japan, are dominant in this issue, because these are policy decisions, these are cultural decisions, these are family impactful decisions that are more pervasive right now in those countries, in particular Taiwan and Korea, but it's pervasive across East Asia, and it's true of Southeast Asia as well, getting to Vietnam and Thailand, but not as much as we see in there. But we got the Singapore article. I don't know all the authors. I didn't look up every article. So precision education needs numbers to track, dashboards, which Jill's presenting for people to see the impacts. So now that we got the context, I'm going to share my screen and I'll have Bo and Jennifer help me out here. And I'll just describe a few of the articles and maybe get you to lean in a particular way. Jennifer's going to help you pick the articles to read. Bo's going to help you. Well, all three of us give you a little lens. And Jennifer's done a wonderful job already. The conversations in Canvas are alive and well early this week because Jennifer went in, even though it was impossible to read all 14 articles. She went in and talked in particular about the intro article and Article 2, which I'll talk about. I don't know what the other one is, Article 8? Yeah, well, I'll find it.
Or no, I'm sorry. 12. I don't know. I'll say it when it comes up. But I just wanted to say one thing. I can't speak to why so many of the articles were from Asian researchers, but I think there's still plenty of interest in precision education here. I mean, I'm hearing a lot about it on the community college level, just maybe in different terms, maybe focused more on retention and identifying at-risk students and keeping them enrolled and that sort of thing, how these technologies could be used at an institutional level. So anyway.
Right.
Jennifer, can I ask you a question on that? What were the other terms that you've seen being used in place of precision education?
I think learning analytics. So when I think about my own understanding of this subject, going back to Dr. Bonk's 511 class, one of the chapters I chose out of the Reiser and Dempsey book for one of the projects was on learning analytics and just big data in education. And at that time, it was more of the LMS dashboards and all, but now we bring in the AI component. And if we have all this data that can predict students that are at risk, and then in theory, deliver some sort of intervention, instead of sitting in I'm also thinking of my past experience as a high school teacher, and I sat in plenty of meetings where we're, pouring through student data, but it's well after the test. Mm-hmm. With AI, can the interventions be more real time and more targeted at individual students? And so it's kind of this evolving thing. So learning analytics, and then the first or second article introduces another letter for the acronym, and is about dispositional learning analytics. So not just LA, but DLA. And then, it just overlaps with other topics like data mining and big data and intervention.
It's scary when you see terms like data mining in these articles, isn't it?
It's in one of the titles. It's there. I'm not sure.
I know. Yeah.
So so the questions that I posed to the discussion board were really focused on feedback, because that's part of what I'm struggling with, is what makes quality intervention, what makes a quality feedback to a student, and also the intrusiveness or invasiveness. And I think in some of Dr. Bonk's other classes, I can't recall which ones, we've talked about the eye tracking software and things like that. And just like, where do you draw the line at, too much student data? So that's kind of what I chose to focus on in the discussion board this week. And then
I'm really glad that you're doing that, because I've got a question ready for you when we get to my article.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Well, and then some people have already, I think Emily posted something about Article 10. So some of the other articles are getting some traction there as well.
Yeah. So you had Article 2 and 8 and 2, 8, 11, and 13.
I highlighted them because I knew I would lose them.
Yeah. So, so you got your questions. We got a lot of feedback on them already from Emily and from Christy and so forth. So you guys go on in here and take a look. Yeah, you're going back and forth. The three of you in particular, and I've got in briefly. Emmanuel also, thank you, Emmanuel, for doing that. And then Emily back. So yeah, so and if you look at the discussions, then you can also look at AI-based discussions in there. That was human to human. We got the AI-based, and Jennifer also posted in here. Oh, is that the same? Was that the same post, Jennifer?
Yes, basically.
So I messed up maybe.
I think I just suggested a different perspective for the same questions. So
Right.
ask
Oh, okay.
AI,
Oh, okay.
how
Gotcha.
could you help customize feedback?
Gotcha. So I'm going to now go into the articles and share again here. So, um,
Sorry.
A lot of articles.
I know, I know.
there should
This
be an
actually worked out really well because our AI in education course that a few of us are in, this is exactly the same topic that we're looking at this week. So this was perfect.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So the first article is from Stephen Yang. It's an editorial. It describes why they're doing this. Now, if you read this article and you read a few other articles, you'll see that part of the impetus, the momentum started with President Obama giving a speech about precision-based medicine. And that inspired all these people to think, well, what if we get precision-based medicine, how about we get precision-based education? So there is a kind of a groundswell of interest in this topic since that speech from Obama, whatever, a decade or so ago, a little more than a decade ago. And so that's interesting. And so this first article, if you don't read anything else, read the first article. It's short. It's going to give you an overview of all the articles for this week. And so that's important to get a sense of what all these articles say. And just again, it's very, 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 very short. And in each article is summarized for you here. And it's a brief conclusion about where humanity's headed. So that first article is good. The second article gets us to Jennifer's pick for the week, about the dispositional learning analytics and students who might have they might be more excited to learn a topic or might be bored to learn a topic. That was one thing that they looked at in terms of dispositions, but there are other things that they looked at as well in here. But they try to compartmentalize human beings according to these 47, I think, right? Something like that. Different aspects or different dispositions that we need to consider or take a look at, and then to fine tune the feedback that's being given. So another thing in here is basically this precision education exists to identify students who potentially could have problems is number one, and that's been some of the success. But then the other side of the coin apparently is to make an intervention to help, and that's not been as successful. So there's a two-part here that's kind of embedded in each of the articles for this week, or in many of the articles. It's the notion of just identifying at-risk students, and that's important. But if you just identify people as being, having a learning disability or might have misconceptions, that's not good enough to solve education's problems. So, but this article looked at a range of dispositions. Participants in the article were academic years 18, 19, 19, 20. So I assume those are college students, 2,000 odd college students in here. And the author, again, of this second one is coming from the Netherlands, working with folks in the University of Michigan together. So you can read about I'm not sure if self-regulated learning is a disposition or it's a factor they're controlling for. Folks who memorize versus an analyze. I'm not sure if that's a disposition. They're categorizing a lot of things as dispositions. I'm not sure. Students who are frustrated with learning, who are bored, confused, anxious, affective side, those that value learning, those that have an interest in learning, those who support effort, those in terms of processing information that are like my daughter used to be, just memorize, 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 versus those that analytically think about things and try and relate it to other things. So looking at different cognitive dispositions that one might have to learning the content. So they start understanding all those things, and then they try and predict performance on those different variables, and maybe make an intervention on them. So looking at their math scores, and how much they've mastered. So Jennifer, you want to jump in here and add to what I've said so far?
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from that article for me was that they were trying to not just predict whether students were at risk for not passing the class or not staying in the class, but to try to figure out why. Because if we're interested in precision education, then a one-size-fits-all intervention isn't going to work. Students may be exhibiting a similar behavior for different reasons, like the non-completion of an assignment. But the example that they used, the specific example, was an independent learner who is really engaged but went off on a tangent versus the one who's just not doing well, procrastinating, avoiding the assignment. And so they talked about, knowing the causes of the student behavior, the students' lack of success would lead to a better intervention. But then I think that's where the article kind of stopped. They gave 2 examples of interventions, but they were very similar.
Yeah.
They put a lot of the energy into trying to categorize the students along all those different dimensions, whether they're attitudes or dispositions or whatever.
Sure, it almost got out of hand. Let's look at the third article I picked out for this week. It's actually article number 5, towards precision education, data mining to identify students' learning patterns when they're reading an ebook. Now, this is something IU's adopted a lot and done research on, the use of ebooks and the data around the data, big data that they've collected, or learning analytics that they've collected. So you'll read our current dean, Stacy Maroney, has many articles on ebooks, and other people at IU have written with her, or in their own studies. So, as it says, the new challenge of AI, machine learning is to improve performance and teaching quality. So here now we can collect all this data on look back strategies of students when they read, on social annotations when they read, on just eye movement, as was mentioned. I did keystroke mapping for my dissertation a long time ago. So you'll get in here and they'll talk about the literature that exists in different areas. This first sentence is really important. Higher education has seen a rapid development with the integration of the internet and the web. With that rapid development and use of digital platforms like Canvas or OpenCourseWare or MOOCs, we got a big volume of people learning online. We need to understand how they're learning online, the activities that enhance it, and so forth. So learning analytics can help us in that regard. And so, although applying digital learning platforms to support teaching has become common in higher ed, it's still difficult for most stakeholders using digital platforms in their classes to effectively and precisely follow how students learn, how they interact, how they behave. And so this study is meant to provide some indicators or some markers, and they use a tool called Book Roll. And I think at the conference I was at in December in Japan, a number of folks were presenting on this. So maybe it's a popular tool in Asia. This article, again, this is from people in accounting department. They're reading really gobs of new terminology and concepts in accounting, and in media studies. So it's both Taiwan and Japan folks working together to understand how they use this annotation tool, Book Roll, to bookmark information, to make notes on and type in their reflections on what they're reading, the concepts that they're learning, the glossary, in effect, the definitions of terms. And again, they can look at all these tools that might be used to mark, tag, or reflect on they're saved. And so the annotation tool can tell you when they were saved, how much they were saved, what was saved, the order in which they saved things. So you can look at behavioral patterns when they did this tagging. What did they do next? What did they do right before it? Did it have an impact on one's learning, and so forth? Did they delete it later on? Did they come back to it later on? So they look at adding annotations. They look at reading time. They look at deleting annotations, and they look at the learning outcomes. And what's called BRR, backtrack reading rate. So they found that in this article, I think the big finding was those that backtracked BRR the most had better performance, better than those that annotated, actually, from what my quick reading of this article. That backtrack, looking at their eye movement data, was very indicating that the students reprocessing the information over and over and over again, and new processing, trying to make new linkages. So they're not just reading forwards, they're reading back. And so reflection in a form of annotation was actually not as correlated, but it was correlated overall. Deleting annotations demonstrated positive correlations because they were deleting because they knew the content, right? Adding annotations, the use of annotations can facilitate student learning activities during the course by providing support for directing their attention and building internal and external connections. So all these things are beneficial, just certain things were more beneficial. Learning analytics can tell you that. The amount of time reading. Reading time spent has been proven relevant to positively correlate with their learning outcomes. In this study, to analyze student reading time over an hour, time-based stamps were used in different ebook materials. So this to me is kind of an interesting article. I have recently published with a team from Beijing Normal on a systematic review of the research on ebooks. And so if anyone's interested, I'm happy to send it to you. I hadn't even thought, when I talked to Bo earlier today, something I could lecture on is that article and what we found. Maybe I will. I normally do I normally lecture in this class on ebooks. I haven't done that. I normally lecture in this class on Maker Labs, I'm not doing it in here. Because we're using all these special issues, a lot of the stuff that I normally talk about, I have not, but I probably should lecture a bit or talk about ebooks and some of the research on ebooks since I just did a study. So I will also, later in the semester, maybe right before spring break, my research on self-directed learning, about 7 studies I'll summarize, and MOOCs and Open Ed and that kind of thing. So this is that article if you're interested in this one. And they had 3 kinds of groups. They had a comprehensive learning group, they had a reflective learning group, and the S, I forget what that S stands for in the third group. If Jennifer remembers, I don't know if she read this one or not, but they had they organized their data into those 3 different groups, and then they tried analyzing the data according to that. But I know the reflective ended up being the best actually in here. Maybe it says the SLG. Let me go back up here a second.
I'll look for it for you.
Selective reading. Bo, if you could find out what that means. Comprehensive research group, students in the subgroup is comprehensive, 35 of them as the students exhibited the highest values for the most of the indicators of learning behavior, representing a comprehensive way of learning, blah, blah, blah. The comprehensive learning group exhibited higher back reading, going back in the text, compared to the selective learning group students. This implied the comprehensive group are more engaged. The comprehensive group exhibited higher reading time values as well, and so forth and so on. But the comprehensive learning group spent more time in reading the ebook materials than the reflective group or the selective group. But you can find out. So each of those was something that they looked at, and they have implications and so forth. You can see the comprehensive group had the highest scores. So I was wrong with the reflective, the second best, and selective was the worst of the 3 types of learners. Well, they kind of did a follow-up. There's different authors here. There's some same authors in both studies. So there's 2 articles back to back in here, Article 5 and Article 6 on ebooks. So if you're interested in ebooks, read Articles 5 and 6 for this week. And it talks about the use of precision education and the BERT, bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. I have no clue what that means, but that's how they calculate scores for the students who are enrolled in the class.
I think BERT is actually one of the earlier LLM AI models.
Okay, there we go.
There actually was a companion model called Ernie. I'm serious about that, but it's funny.
Bert and
at
Ernie.
least.
Okay, Sesame
Yeah.
Street. Okay, really?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the research questions in this article: can machines extract concepts that approximate to the key concepts extracted by humans for marker grading? That's a mouthful, but yeah. What is the relationship between marking quality, marking frequency, and learner outcomes? Is there a difference between students with varying levels of reading skills in learning performance and self-regulated learning? And again, they're using the book roll, which must be a system that was designed in Taiwan or Japan or across, must have been a big brand project of some kind. Because again, I saw this presented at a conference in Japan 2 months ago. Analysis of machine grading and human. So they must be comparing machine and human grading of the student's performance. You're looking at the performance over time throughout the semester here. You see the markers from weeks, how high the scores were and how they varied across the weeks of the semester and so forth. They looked at student goal setting, self-regulation. This is all metacognitive kinds of measures. So self-regulated learning in those 3 groups. And if you look at the scores in terms of self-regulated learning, help-seeking behaviors, it seems like group A was higher than the other 2 groups. So we'll have to figure out what group A was that differentiated them from group B and C. It might be the same 3 groups from the earlier study that was mentioned. In the next article, this was the easiest to understand. So if you're going through and taking a look at, they're basically, and so Alicia and Lena, this relates to you guys because this is looking at language learning. And so personalized learning is a popular topic in precision language education. It plays an increasing role in language ed to meet diverse student needs and expectations. So in this study, they looked at a large literature database from 2000 to 2019. So nearly 20 years of data. It is 20 years. Trend analysis, what articles are they publishing? Well, it's mainly this one, Ed Tech and Society, contributed a lot. But what topics were people studying for language learning? Well, they're looking at motivation. They're looking at mobile learning, game-based learning, online web-based learning. And you know what recommendations were made in all these studies that they found. So if you take a look at this article, so they wanted to know what are the trends, what are the top journals, who are the authors, what part of the globe did they come from, what were their research focuses, how did the research focus evolve over time, and how were research concerns of the major countries, regions, and institutions? What were those? And so this is how they form their systematic review of the research, which I'll talk about on Friday in my R795 class, how to do a systematic reviews of the research. So how they eliminated certain articles, how they identified certain articles. And you can see the number of articles on precision-based language learning has gone up from 2000 to 2017 to about 18 articles a year, from about 2 articles a year. You can see that Computers in Ed and Ed Tech and Society were the primary journals that people published in, as well as computer-assisted language learning system, language learning journals, and so forth. You can look at the citation counts, mostly Taiwan and USA, somewhat UK, South Korea. You can citation count by by the article. Yeah. It's hard for me to scroll here. So citation count again, what universities? Korea University is up there, Sunghi, University of Hong Kong, National University of Taiwan. You might recognize National Taiwan University of Science and Technology. And then they're looking at here, where were the researchers coming from? Poland, China, US, Taiwan. were they working with others from, you know, other countries? So China and Singapore, China and Iran, China and South Korea, Taiwan and UK, Taiwan and Canada, Taiwan and USA, Australia and France, Australia and Belgium, Australia, Italy, South Africa and Italy. Now, that's kind of interesting. Looking at collaborations of top 19 most prolific institutions. So here are the, you know, University of Murcia, I never even heard of. Dublin City University, I have heard of. And then we get into topics with suggested labels. So personalized feedback for language learning, 13% of the articles. Anxiety, 20%. Mobile learning, 24%. Grammar-based, 13%. Gaming, 3.6%. So that's kind of interesting too. And then we get into topic distribution. What topics and how they, again, my finger can't hold this well here. Here we go. So personalized feedback, you know, which by country. So in Spain, the big ones were personalized language learning networks and also mobile learning in Spain. In Korea, anxiety and personalized learning. That's interesting. In Iran, it was 3 topics: mobile, personalized grammar, and anxiety. So it varied by country. And so it varied by the top institutions out there. And then this is a figure of major research issues and how they evolved from, you know, recent to, you know, from the past to recent. So what are people exploring today that they weren't exploring before? And what are the emerging topics of the past 5 years? You know, collaborative annotation is listed in the last 5 years. Hypermedia gaming is in there. So that's kind of interesting. Interactive learning, video feedback. You know, these are the topic changes. So you can read this article. So that's article number, what was that? 20 years, at 9, number 9. Okay, the next article I've got here is article 10. Again, I just started getting through some of these and I didn't have a chance because class was ready to start. So I didn't really fully get into this one. Unfolding student assignment submission behavior patterns in temporal learning analytics. Now, Bo, is this one of yours? I don't think it was.
No, I don't have that one.
Yeah, okay. So this is people in Turkey. So this study analyzed student online assignment submission behaviors from the perspectives of learning analytics and when they submitted the assignment. The results revealed that students displayed similar patterns in terms of assignment submission. I did a study of this 20 years ago, or 25, and I have a book on some of this. It was observed that students' assignment submission behavior did not change across the semester when these results. So basically it means if Jill's late the first time, expect her to be late the second time, and the third. Sorry, Jill. No, Jill will be on time. I'm sure she'd be on.
I didn't read this one, but I think someone has posted to the discussion board about it and talked about the connection, not just the behavior remaining static, but the predictive power of that behavior. And it did remind me of a different article I read in a previous semester from, I don't know, 10 years ago or more about the difference in just a student receiving a welcome message before the online course started and the students who logged in beforehand versus after, and they were tying the in success to those early behaviors. And so I think this one went along a similar line, but I know I think Emily posted to the discussion board about this one.
Well, there is research that shows if you get feedback in the first 3 weeks, you're more likely to succeed in the course and stay in the course. So the early behaviors, you know, getting rewarded for your early behaviors has some lasting value. Bo?
I was just going to say one of the studies that I looked at as well very much tied into this exact same idea where you know the researchers were actually looking at just the patterns and the behaviors that they would see in the students or the learners throughout the course of the study, and they would utilize that then to predict you know, what the rest of their learning was going to look like. So I mean, this is totally on the exact same topic, though.
Mhm. So they looked at, here's what the behaviors, when they viewed the assignment, when they started the assignment, when they looked at the questions, when they submitted, when they reviewed the work, you know, those kinds of things can be looked at. Are those important to learning? Well, maybe, you know, maybe not. Feature of the study, how many attempts, the number of times students viewed the questions, the duration, how long they viewed them, how much, you know, when they started, when they completed. All these are temporal or time-related data stuff. It's somewhat interesting, you know, we can look here at the students and when they started the assignment, when they completed the assignment, the time that it took for them to complete the assignments and so forth. Somewhat interesting. And then if we can put the students into clusters of high, medium, and low, and then look at their submission behaviors. You know, I'm not sure what high, medium, and low here means, but students who did not submit, blah, blah, blah. So must be the high. I want to take a guess, Bo, what the high would be in here. High, medium, low. I guess high participatory students, those that went in a lot during the semester, I guess that's what that means in here. And so student assignment submission behaviors over time. Again, the high, medium, and low students. And then the transitions, I'm not sure what transitions between assignments, among different assignments, transitions. You'll have to read the article to figure out what that one is. List of associated, now that you have to read the article. So let me go on to the next one. And I've messed up here. Can you see this one? Determining, this is yours, Bo? No.
Nope.
No, this one has, this is interesting about this one, is it tries to think about how are we moving to? You know, what new technologies, and so, you know, this methodological theoretical synergy provides an integrated framework for learning analytics and the development of machine and human symbiotic relationships. The framework intends to address challenges in current analytics framework, and it considers the brain. The brain component takes in and analyzes multiple multimodal streams of student data from other components with the model-based reinforcement learning. Okay, all right. So what they try and do here is, and I'll come to it in a second. The symbiotic relationship between machine and human, what the RL will do, constraints of the RL, and how humans can correlate with RL. So now we have to figure out what our RL is here. Hang on, got the article in front of me. I think we skipped an article. I think we skipped yours, Bo.
Oh, we jumped, huh?
Yeah, I think we jumped one ahead. I missed that.
You want me to jump in?
No, hang on. I'm trying to see what RL.
RL is reinforcement learning, I think.
Thank you. Okay.
So this was one of the articles I chose, but I struggled with this one.
Okay.
Um,
It's kind of deep is what you're saying. They're trying to create a smarter learning environment. And so this is the framework they're creating for that smarter learning environment. And smart classrooms is often the focus there at the bottom and the social networking side. There's Jill's digital dashboard at the top right. But the bottom right is maybe what's they're adding in here, the intelligent agent component, but not sure. I haven't read this. I just downloaded this. So I need to go back and maybe we go, this is yours, Bo?
Let's see, determine quality. Nope.
Okay.
I think you just did that one.
Okay.
No, that one's actually the discussion board one, I think.
Yeah, looking at what students are talking in the discussion boards, point card, trying to map out the discussion boards by time.
Well, no, by quality of student submission. So they had 3 categories. An idea could be potential or promising or trivial. And the
Oh,
computer or the text miner was scanning to see which ideas met these criteria.
so I'd recommend this article as well then. They're using something called a knowledge forum out of the University of Toronto, which initially was called Computer Supported Intentional Learning Environments, or the CECIL project. And the CECILs have been around since I was in grad school. And the folks who built this, 2 famous professors at Toronto at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education called OISE. And these are Maureen Scardamalia and Carl Bereiter. They sold that tool, CECIL, to Apple Computer. And Apple gave them a ton of money. And with that money, they built the Knowledge Forum. And when I was in Toronto in 2000-ish, during the election here, when Al Gore didn't beat George Bush and then beat him, then didn't beat him, they had 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds present their keynote. They were using this knowledge forum to link knowledge together and use peer-based databases to juxtapose different ideas and to get kids to think critically about their ideas and think about connecting and all this at a very young, early elementary age. And so now they're looking in this article, I guess, at the quality of those ideas. Now it's also being used in college with college students. I'm not sure what this article is using in the knowledge forum with, oh, here's a grade 8 students, so 8th graders were involved in this study. The database includes 101 notes written by students in the knowledge forum for Marlene Scardamalia, 2004. The online discourse pattern supports knowledge building. So this is a tool for students to juxtapose knowledge, to build knowledge, to discuss knowledge, to argue knowledge, and all this kind of stuff. And Marlene Scardamalia and Carl Bereiter wrote a book called The Psychology of Writing. So Lena and Alicia, you might look up they're very, very famous educational psychologists who are really writing researchers. And my dissertation was all on this kind of stuff, writing as thinking. So these are the annotations and the discourse patterns in effect that they're looking at, and looking at, are they exploring new ideas and listening to others and their ideas being challenged and so forth. Are ideas in classroom talk disputational, with students making counter assertions and counter assertions, competitive instead of collaborative? Is it cumulative? Students are accepting other work and sharing other work or repeating other work? Is it exploratory? These are the patterns of discourse and dialogue. And so that's what they're trying to analyze here in this particular article.
And they're trying to see if the computer can do that, can step in, not as the human moderator, but to track it, because these discussion boards get so heavy that the teacher can't stay on top of all of it at once.
So there's a computer providing just-in-time support or join nudges or trying to integrate knowledge.
Progress reports. So this, what's on the screen right now, and one of my questions posted in the discussion board was about this. Like, I see this, if I got this as a student, number of notes, you posted 9, number of promising ideas, only 1. Like, how would a student actually react to that? And so they're trying to design it. It's a prototype, but they intended it to be shared with the instructor and with the student.
And then you're probably wondering what constitutes like what was the designation on the meaningful contribution? Was that what the wording was?
Right.
Yeah. So what actually constitutes that? How do you is there a rubric that's like set up for that, or what?
Yeah, and then it can be replicated, right?
Yeah.
Well, and also the intervention. So if the student is not posting very many promising ideas or potential ideas, how do you teach them to do it better? Not just give them a number, say, oh, only 1 out of 9 was good.
Right. So here's the table of notes in the discourse groups, and different discourse numbers and number of DUs in a group, discourse units coded, so the coding. And here we can kind of look at individual discourse units over time. You'll have to read the article if to get into specifics here. But it looks like kind of interesting here. Promising, potential, and trivial. Trivial wins in the dispositional. In the cumulative, it's promising wins, and in the exploratory, promising wins. So they start arguing and being competitive. It all gets at little nitty-gritty basic stuff that's not really that important to the total understanding of the corpus of the text, basically, is what they're saying here. So the next article, if I can get to it. Oh, we've had that one. And then the career decision-making one. And again, I didn't get much. Did you look at this, Bo?
Yeah, that was mine.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really liked this article actually, and I was gonna ask everyone if they could spend just like a couple of seconds to begin with, by thinking about when they realized what they wanted to do when they got older, like as a job or a career, but also what that job or that career was, and if it's still the exact same as it was when you initially realized that.
When you knew what you wanted to do. So that's what
Mhm.
Bo's asking us here. So
And I'd like to hear from you guys on this too.
yeah. So when did you know what you wanted to do with your life?
Alicia's smiling very smugly. I like this. This is
Challenging
great.
question, because for me, I never think I will change my job. I enjoy my my teaching, and I like my students. I really like this interactive learning and teaching and education. And so maybe other scholars can share their ideas. It's great question.
Yeah.
Lena, when did you know you want to be an English professor?
You mean when did I know?
Yeah.
I think actually to become a teacher is kind of a dream. When I was in my middle school, because of my I have an English teacher in my high school who gave me a lot of effect on being a teacher in the future. And then I just go to the normal university and to be a pre-service teacher, and then go to become a university teacher, then gradually become the associate professor. So it's a kind of a direct road. I didn't change my road. But also at the same time, besides teaching language or teach some other things to my students, I also did other things relevant to education. So to me, it's just like that I have several different jobs.
Yeah.
I enjoy this kind of multi, choices and multitasks in my life. Yeah.
Cool. I love it. Jill, what about you?
I always tell everybody that, because since I was a child, I know I'm so talkative. So I would be the teacher. Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer, just
Yeah.
because you're on screen. Oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so it's a dream from my childhood. From my childhood. Yeah. I love being a teacher, and I love to interact with people. So it's a dream job for me.
I love it. I think the fact that you're talkative would make you a good teacher. That's good. Jennifer, what about you? Hey, and you're next, Dr. Bonk, too.
I don't want to answer this on the, I started in the sciences. I have a botany degree, and then I taught English, and I still don't know if this is my last stop. So that's all I'm going to say for tonight.
I love that though. That's great. I am 40, almost 42 years old, and I'm not exactly sure what I want to do when I grow up yet. So yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Mr. I went to school to be an accountant.
And so, I will tell you that it's not the most exciting profession in the world when you realize that it's not, accounting's not, then anything else looks good, pretty much, and so I took courses at night to get ready for grad school. And in one of those courses in developmental psych, I went to the library and I saw a book on learning. I said, people can study learning, human learning, and make it, become a professor of human learning. How cool is that? People actually study learning. So I thought, wow, since I like to learn, I've always been learning, and I like ancient Egypt and Rome as a early elementary kid, and all that. So I always just like to learn history stuff. But yeah, it was waking up to that fact and then going to grad school, a year or so later, that I knew ed psych / ed tech was the thing to do. Just stumbling into the book on learning was important to me, but also reading Roger Shank's book, The Cognitive Computer, at the same time, and doing a book report on it. And Shank died this past year, but he was a famous AI guy, if you don't know
So
Roger Shank.
what was the name of the book?
The Cognitive Computer.
Cognitive computer. Okay. Okay, cool. Well, the reason that I was asking this is because my story, my venture into education actually ties directly back into the topic of this article here, where what they're actually
I
doing.
can pull it up here.
Oh, I can actually, I'm going to share it because I've got
Okay.
an annotation tool to show everyone too. So
Aha.
I'm very excited about this. Yeah. So it tied in really well with everything tonight. Yeah. So when I was in high school, I knew that I was going to be going to college. I'd applied to a couple of colleges here in the States, but I had no idea what exactly I really wanted to do when I went off to college. Then obviously when I entered the job market, and my story is kind of silly. I ended up initially going to Purdue University for their computer graphics program. Well, I'm colorblind. It didn't work out well. So then I spent like just a little bit of time in like academic purgatory where I was not exactly sure what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I ended up, just falling in love with working with kids. And I taught a Sunday school class for 4-year-olds at my church, actually. And that was where I really started to develop a little bit of my forte for teaching. But I had this idea while I was reading this article here, because I was thinking how nice it would have been at a much younger age if I could have had more targeted support in finding out and exploring what my areas of interest were for my career. And so I thought that would have been a really nice thing to do. But I wanted to share this with everyone. I brought this tool up in one of my other courses, but I haven't shown it to you guys yet. This is called Liquid Text. Has anyone used this yet?
I think I've heard of Liquid Test, but I've not used it.
Okay, I liked it on a couple of different fronts. It does connect directly with another application called Zotero, which is really good for citations and references there. But I thought this was definitely worth exploring a little bit with you as a class tonight because of the topic that we were on previously with the hypothesis application. As you go through your journal article on the left-hand side, you also have a separate panel on the right-hand side that allows you to kind of stay organized in 2 separate flows of material here. And then if you make like a copy of one of the different sections on the document, you can see exactly where you've pulled that section of information out from as well. This portion of it with the handwriting, this was actually something that I'd done on my iPad, but because it syncs up so well, it was a nice little opportunity for me to kind of go back in and revisit this here on my desktop. As well, and to kind of merge the two. Dr. Bonk, when you were actually kind of talking about one of the other articles previously, I thought that you were jumping in on this one because if you look, this one is actually opened up with the
Right, with the
conversation
Obama
about
one.
President
Yeah, I
Obama
saw
as
that.
well.
I said, oh, a couple articles have the Obama reference in there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was definitely directly connected with that. So I did end up coming in here. Let's see, where'd my these were my key takeaways were from the very top of the article here. They were talking about the different approach. What was let's see, they call it SAL research. So, so this was the self-reporting aspect of this. This was one of the big takeaways that I took from this was that it was really interesting because when I hear the term self-reporting, immediately in my brain, I start to think about, okay, there's got to be some issues with validity in this because you know individual self-reporting, there's got to be some fluctuation in the results with this. But this particular study was actually done in a way where they were in a blended learning environment, and they did determine that the online learning that the students were carrying out was virtually identical to the self-reporting aspect that was brought about in the study, which I thought was rather interesting as well. But then the other piece of this that was kind of cool is that they were talking about a blended learning environment. So you've got a hybrid approach. You have your face-to-face, and then you have your virtual piece that goes along with this. And so they juxtapose this with a mixed methods study as well, which I really liked because you've got your qualitative and your quantitative aspects of it. And I thought that kind of mirrored just the different learning environments that the students were going to be utilizing in this study pretty well. So other than that, like there was nothing like super exciting that I pulled in away from this. I did jot down while you guys were chatting on one of the other articles what one of my big questions was, and this was really in response to some of the conversations that I'd had with, or that Dr. Bonk you pulled out tonight from, I think it was Jennifer and Jill were the main ones on this, but I was intrigued to find out. And sorry, again, this ties back to my AI and education course. So one of the things I was thinking about is where does the line get drawn when we're talking about like user user information, and so you got these analytics tools that they're obviously obtrusive on user privacy. But is there a gray line that's in there? Because what I'm seeing from the outcome of a study such as this is that you know, there is going to be the potential upside of this where learners are going to be from a much younger age able to explore and learn all that they need to be successful in the careers that are of particular interest to them. And where does the privacy line lie? And how do we know, you know, which is the good side and which is the bad side of that line?
Any comments on Bo's question about privacy issues? Anyone have an opinion?
I have strong opinions on the privacy issue, but I also have, you know, concerns about how all the data is interpreted. One of the articles even mentioned not just like the eye tracking, but yawning. And I remember reading a news piece about yawns being a sign of trying to stay awake, not, you know, shouldn't be taken as a sign of disrespect. So how is all this data being interpreted and the effects on students if decisions are made for them based on this data, you know, that sort of thing.
One of the questions that I posed in my other course this week, please bear in mind that I was an elementary teacher. Okay, so this is very, you know, low level. One of the things that I used to do with my class is I would take, I mean, like almost probably thousands of pictures throughout the course of the school year. And all of my photos would automatically be uploaded into Google Photos. And so it puts the students' facial images in through their facial recognition software. And at the end of the year, what I would do is I would type in a student name and it would bring up any photo from that school year that that individual student was in, and I would make a folder with those photos, share those with the parents. What does that say? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, there was a news piece on the local news just the other day about one of the school districts in the DFW area. They did some sort of unplanned interview, caught students on camera, and people are resigning over it. So, I mean, it's an issue.
Just because students were captured in the background of an interview
Without their
that was
permission.
spontaneous interview,
Mhm.
and they just happened to be there, and they lost their jobs over it.
I don't know if they just happened to be there or if they were being asked questions by I didn't see all the details of it, but it made the news. And
Yeah.
you know, a lot of students fill out the privacy do not film. So I don't know whether they expressly ignored. Again, I don't know the details of the case. It was just on the news not 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue, and we see people here who have their cameras turned off, and that's fine, or don't attend and just watch the video later, and that's fine too. You know, whatever they're comfortable with doing in here. So, Bo, I don't know. Why don't you post to the Canvas as a question? Let's see how it sorts out, and that'd be a really important question to ask within Canvas. Probably in the human-to-human discussion forum, put it in there, and let's see or create a new thread, even possibly. So I think we've done a lot tonight. Learn new technology tools, whether it's liquid. What is that? Liquid what?
Liquid text.
Text, or it's hypothesis, or it's perusal, or some other technology tool that enables us to augment our thoughts, to extend our ideas in different ways. This is all great. I mean, this is what technology should be used for. I've gone through a number of articles in a brief fashion to get you excited, maybe to read them. I put a little emphasis on the first article, a little emphasis on the second article, even though it's a little, with all those dispositions, a little deep at time, a little unwieldy, but it was good. And then on 5 and 6 on ebooks, and then on the article on 20 years of personalized learning, number 9, and then submission behaviors, number 10. It might be interesting to some of you to read. The next version of learning analytics, the Smart Educate, might be a little difficult. Both Jennifer and I found that Smart Learning article number 13 on Analytics 2.0 to be maybe difficult. Quality of ideas. Now the quality article I really do like, article 11, looking at the knowledge forum, because that article relates to the field as a whole over the past 30 or plus years, how it's evolved. We're all trying to build knowledge construction tools, social interaction tools that will get young learners to start thinking about their ideas and not just put down the first thing that comes to mind, but try and connect their ideas to others. And then article 14, we talked about the career decisions, research predicting undergraduate career decisions. Bo read that, found it to be of interest. I didn't have enough time to really make a judgment on the viability of the article. I will say, though, next week we will hear from people at Microsoft. We have Microsoft. Tom Ball will come and talk to us about microcode, a programming language for kids that has 8,000 kids in the UK alone using microcode, something like that. So we'll hear from him some of the data. Now, so everyone watching later, to everyone who's here, I apologize for sending you emails today that had a huge amount of file size. I've wrecked your email in baskets for the next month. So delete whatever I sent you if you're hitting a cushion. And I also sent you something on Soro. Soro is a new tool that lets you take text and turn it into videos, Hollywood production videos. It has flaws. It has a lot of, serious limitations, because they could show you woolly mammoths in going across the countryside in a terrain that they never would have been on, because the computer AI doesn't know that, but it's pretty cool. So that article is like a 10 meg, so I apologize. In the Tom Ball invitation in Outlook is also 20 megs or something like that, because his photo must have been like 10 or 20 megs that I used. So I apologize. I didn't know these files were so big. But anyways, next week we'll talk about Microsoft microcode for the first hour, 6 to 7, and maybe beyond, 6 to 7:15. At 7:30, I'm trying to get the people who's edited the special issue for next week on computational thinking, on creating computational thinkers, to come in. We have one from Beijing Normal, one from the University of Hong Kong, and one from Spain. The Spain one would be way early in the morning. I don't think it can come, but the Hong Kong ones would be 8:30 in the morning in Hong Kong and Beijing. So I think one of them may come. So we may have 2 guests next week. The week after that, I might present all my research on self-directed learning, all 7 studies, as the parting gift before you go to break for spring break. So it'd be on Monday, 2 weeks from today. And then I wouldn't see you again till 2 weeks after that or so, or something like that. And then we're going to have Technology Day. So Merve Bastigan, my former student, and Belle Lee, who's a helper in this class, and maybe Shishi Lee, who's my student, we might show you different technologies. And so this course, people sign up because they think they're going to learn technologies. Well, it's more learned by osmosis. The hypothesis people were here, we might hear about. It's not a weekly demonstration of technologies. This is more of the research on technologies. I will say, anybody who can survive this class for 15 weeks and read 14 special issues of journals, they need to be, we need to make you saints, because I don't think any of my classes ever in teaching this have read from 14 different special issues of research. Usually we have a couple weeks where we're reading kind of conceptual pieces or news articles or things like that. Every week in this class is research after research after research. So, I can understand your brain, but we get spring break coming up in here. Plus, task 2 gets you to read news articles, and that's coming due pretty soon. So I'm having you read some things in the news to kind of supplement all this research that you're reading about. Because I realize, I started realizing it early on, that this is maybe a bit much to ask in terms of weekly reading of research over and over. And I'm not sure if I will change it next year. I probably will. I'm not sure yet. I haven't made that decision. I'm going to keep going reading the research. But I do, if you want to take, a week where you're just reading conceptual pieces or reading other things than research, just let me know, and it's okay. It's going to be okay. So 3 weeks coming up. We're going to have an SDL week where I present my research on SDL. We'll have Technology Week where we're going to just learn technologies, and we'll have Microsoft Week. That's next week. So that'd be kind of cool to hear from Microsoft people.
Hey, how did Copilot go?
And Copilot, I tried, and it worked well so far, but I haven't fully gotten in, but I did use. Is anyone here using Copilot, Microsoft Copilot? Maybe we can ask the Microsoft guy about Copilot. Okay, so this is the end of week 7. So I will stop the recording here. Week 7, part 2, R678 in the spring of 2024. I split this up into 2 sections this time, unlike last week, because I end up splitting up anyways. So thank you for coming this week. Enjoy the week and the coming weekend and the IST conference a week from Friday.